Yes or no?
Can I'm going to call on have 5 more questions, and then I'm going to ask our panel to answer. I just want to say one thing. Brent Trades Council passed a resolution last night supporting BDS and supporting a two-state solution. So that is what we're going to be taking to the Trades Council conference in May. I was in Palestine over a year ago, and all the Palestinians I met as I was touring around Palestine said, the best support you can give us is BDS. So I think that is what we have to campaign on. As you said, within the Labour Party, within the trade union movement, because it is the most effective tool raising awareness. It's a non-violent way of raising awareness of what Israel is doing. Okay, I'm going to take so Jerry, the gentleman over there, there's 3, Sarah, so that's Jerry, is there a lady there?
No, there's a man here.
Yes, this gentleman at the back, this man and Sarah. So start there. Jerry?
Okay, Jerry Downing, I'm Assistant Secretary of Brent Trades Council. I think that the attack on Jeremy Corbyn is not just about Palestine. The attack on Jeremy Corbyn is about the 550,000 members that have joined the Labour Party since Corbyn first stood. Now, this is a very serious problem, not alone for Netanyahu, but it's a very serious problem for British capitalism, because for 10 years now austerity has been imposed on the British working class. Their wages now are lower than they were 10 years ago. Food banks are proliferating around the country for the worst off sections, in a shocking case of transference of wealth from the poor to the rich. Since for 10 years, the amount of money that the richest 1% have accumulated is really appalling. So, and this situation, the anti-Semitic charges against Corbyn are not just about Israel. They are about the British working class, and they are about removing Corbyn as the focus of the fight back. You will note that what they said was, first when those people joined the Labour Party, they said, well, you know, they're just ultra leftists, you know, they're just Trotskyists, sort of those kind of people. They don't represent anything. And then came the 2017 election, and they did represent something. They represented a huge polarisation in the British working class. So I'm really opposed to the notion that you should separate the struggle for Palestine with the struggle for a left-wing Labour government on socialist policies. I think the two of them are the same thing. I think every elemental leftist in the country supports Palestine. It's an elementary leftist thing. I've done it since I was a teenager in the west of Ireland. Of course you have to do that. But in order to do that, you do really have to say that Corbyn has conceded a lot, and John MacDonald has conceded more, and the 4 trade union leaders that shit on us in the Labour Party conference, they are the real problem now. They are the real barrier to socialism.
Thank you, Jerry.
I'm George Shaw from North London. I want to go back to the geopolitical situation with regard to the Arabs and the actual struggle in Palestine. In the post-war years, in the 1950s, things were very different. There was a large pan-Arab movement which had some revolutionary potential, and also there was a number of political movements in the Palestinian territory itself. Some of them were Marxists, and they had at the time they had a tremendous impact. now the situation is very different. You've got the real need is for a unitary state in Palestine, shared by both communities. But you need also a social revolution in the surrounding Arab states as well. And one way of going towards that is we could campaign to stop the supply of arms to Saudi Arabia and the other states in the Conference of Gulf States.
George, you've got 1 more minute.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. I think there's a gentleman here with his hand up, yes?
Well,
And
it
then
really
Sarah.
follows on from what the gentleman at the back said. Mine's simply a question.
No, sorry, it was the gentleman at the back.
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My name is Jim Curran. I'm an Irish Republican. I'm not in the Labour Party or Momentum because I don't think I would last very long in either organisation. I want to slightly disagree with David in relation to the role of the Israeli embassy. The first attacks on Jeremy Corbyn was about his involvement with Sinn Féin, and they tried to say he was a supporter of the gallant and brave Irish Republican Army. And every Zionist journalist was involved in that campaign and smeared against Jeremy Corbyn. And some of them journalists were former employees of the Israeli embassy, both here in the United Kingdom and in Ireland. And that failed because there are 2.3 million people here of Irish descent. And we joined with all of the other people, with the British people, the black people, the Asian people, everybody, to vote for Jeremy Corbyn and to defy all these Zionist journalists who tried to blackmail Jeremy Corbyn and smear him with their false allegations over his support for the gallant and brave IRA. These very same journalists, after the election, they started this, what I would call rubbish about anti-Semitism. Because there's far more anti-Irish racism, even now, than there is anti-Semitism. The Orange Order, in Liverpool, in Edinburgh, in Glasgow, in Derry and Belfast, they put up whole piles of crates and burned the Irish national flag, burned effigies of the Pope, and burned effigies of Irish Republican leaders. What does these journalists who are talking about anti-Semitism, what do they say about that appalling anti-Irish racism? And some of these people, I agree with you, that we should keep on talking and saying the things. If we want to call Israel a terrorist state, an apartheid state, we should keep on calling it and not be afraid to do it, because there are a group of these Zionists from the Israeli embassy who are going to meeting after meeting and recording, I'll finish, and recording what people are saying, and also making videos of them. And then I went to a Palestinian meeting where this happened to me. They come along then and said that I attended an anti-Semitic meeting. It was more anti-Semitic than this meeting has been tonight. But so that is why this Israeli embassy thing should be exposed more. And it's going to be exposed because there's a number of liable cases coming up.
Thank you very much. This meeting is about Palestine. I will ask you to ensure your contributions are about Palestine. This is an important meeting calling for solidarity with the Palestinian people, and that it's important that we stick to the subject. Sarah, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I absolutely agree that we're here primarily to talk about solidarity with the Palestinian people, and I'm absolutely convinced that BDS has to be a big part of that. But I do want to say a little bit about anti-Semitism because for myself as a socialist, and I think for the Trades Council, which has already shown a commitment to anti-racism, you know, I can understand that for Hilani and Kiri Tank's absolute priority is to talk about Palestine. But where we have, for instance, somebody being accused of anti-Semitism when they talk about the banks causing the crisis of 2008, you know, like Barclays and Lloyds and all those other Jews, and they're accused of being anti-Semitic for saying that. And I agree with David that real anti-Semitism...
You said all those
No,
other Jews.
sorry, I said that an accusation has been made that people who referred to bankers causing the crash of 2008 have been accused of being anti-Semitic, which I found a bit weird, given some of the people who had got banks. But where I agree with David, and I do think we have a duty, if we are anti-racist, to combat anti-Semitism. And I do think that while that false anti-Semitism is being stirred up, real anti-Semitism is on the increase. And only a few hundred yards from here, a few months ago, my daughter's partner went for a run in the park to find swastikas spray painted on pavements and bus shelters and SS signs as well. Now I think that is undeniably anti-Semitic, and I am very proud that she and her son rolled up their sleeves and scrubbed those off, and then contacted, and a number of people in this room were there, people that they could get hold of, and within a matter of days there was a vigil, a solidarity vigil against anti-Semitism with about 160 people just down the road. So I think that fighting anti-Semitism and every form of racism has to go hand in hand with supporting the people of Palestine, and I was proud that Jeremy Corbyn did that, marching on 2 feet in his speech to the conference.
Now, I'm not going to take any more questions. I'm going to ask our speakers to reply. I've got a couple of announcements to make. I think it's been a good meeting, a good discussion. I'm going to ask Ms. Salma to start.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I agree a lot with, you know, what's already been said by the other speakers about how to deal with Corbyn so-called capitulations. I guess the question really for me always is, it is the case that the Labour Party and Corbyn in particular are under massive pressure to make certain concessions which otherwise he might not have made. So for like adopting the IHRA definition or other things. And I suppose the question for me is always, do those concessions really have an impact on what Labour Party policy would likely be if the Labour government was elected? I mean, do they really have any material significance, or are they more kind of like symbolic measures? And I see them more really as the latter, so long as everyone has already said, so long as the pressure from Labour Party members and wider sections of society keeps being applied. Because it's you know, these things are all in the application, so it's not an NEC decision that really matters at the end of the day. It's what impact that has on the ground, and it's how people respond to that and continue to mobilise and organise in order to ensure that symbolic actions don't have a practical, sort of detrimental practical effect. So it's just, I think really we need to be, I'm saying this a bit to Wissam, right? Because I understand the sentiment behind your frustration, but I think we've got to be intelligent about this. Pick our battles, pick the battles that count. Don't expend energy where it's not required, because unfortunately, we don't have the sorts of resources that pro-Israeli lobby groups do. And so we have to be intelligent, I think, in the way that we deal with this. I just wanted to also say one thing I slightly disagreed with that Curie said, actually, though, just to sort of inject something here that might be more interesting. She said, and Hughes kind of said it, but I don't think he quite means it in the same way as Curie. So Curie said we shouldn't be, we should just focus on Palestine, not get sucked into all of these debates about free speech and all of these kind of esoteric, she kind of suggested like sort of esoteric battles. I actually do disagree with that, and a lot of people I think from the floor have said it too, which is that unfortunately we're in a position, if you want to be pro-Palestinian in this country, you are being targeted by this IHRA campaign and all that goes along with it. Therefore, unfortunately, you have to respond to that directly in order to regain terrain which will otherwise be lost in your advocacy. And that's just where we're at. It's very annoying. So I don't think it works to just say, oh, let's not talk about that, let's just focus on Palestinian children in Israeli jails. Because the battleground in this country is to keep hold of the terrain that we have, that has been fought for and hard won actually, which is support of Palestinians, being able to say that Israel is racist, all of these things. So that unfortunately that's where we're at, and we do have to fight those battles. I think that we'll just have to try to work out a way to diversify as a movement our tactics. So where battles on IHRA need to be fought, they will be fought. Where resources can be put elsewhere and there's no point in fighting our battle because it's just a symbolic thing, we don't fight it. That's the way I see it for the time being at least. And I also just agree, I totally agree that there's a convergence of interests from the right of society and pro-Israeli groups to try to destroy Corbyn and the politics that he represents. So that's what this is really about, as it's already been said. Corbyn represents a massive threat to the right. He represents a massive threat to imperial ambitions because he's got a record of anti-imperialism, and he poses a massive threat to Israel because of his pro-Palestinian stance. So all of those forces which are opposed to all of those things he represents are converging on attacking him, and therefore the counter-attack should also be through an alliance of the left, pro-Palestinian sections of society and other sections of society, like other BAME communities, as we've been saying, Irish, black people, all of the people that the right, as it were, the right-wing agenda of this country threatens and Corbyn represents, all of those constituencies need to form an alliance, I think, to support Corbyn. So I hope that's clear, but that's how I see it all interlinking.
Thank you, Salma. We've got 5 minutes. We're finishing at 9. I'm going to ask David to give us a couple of minutes and Hugh to sum up.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Sarah, the point that comment about the bankers was made by Stephen Pollard, the very, very right-wing editor of the Jewish Chronicle, who responded to some comments that Corbyn has said about bankers and their responsibilities for the crisis by saying, oh, isn't this anti-Semitic? And I tweeted, Stephen Pollard, Jeremy Corbyn, one of them thinks all bankers are Jews. Clue, it's not Jeremy Corbyn. The role of the Israeli embassy, not at all denying that role, but I'm saying keep it in perspective in relation to all the other forces that are involved. They will do everything they can from the Israeli state to undermine him, but there's also a lot of other people, and it's kind of overlapping agendas. I think it's more a sort of harmony thing rather than orchestration, if you like. And anti-Semitism, anti-Irish racism, it's not a competition, you know, all racism is absolutely to be opposed all of the time. In terms of Labour's policies, and from here, Islington North, Jeremy's constituency, they had a resolution which had to be submitted before we knew the outcome of the NEC, but it was phrased in such a way saying whatever the outcome, this is what we're going to suggest doing. And it was about committing the Labour Party to very detailed support for Palestinian rights and pushing that agenda in the aftermath of the IHRA thing. And I know about that because I helped to draft that motion. But that is Jeremy's constituency, he has that. The final point I want to make is something that I meant to say in my initial speech, which I think is a very interesting development. The organisation that I'm part of, Jewish Socialist Group, before 2001, if you went to pro-Palestine marches, you would only see one Jewish banner on those marches. You'd see the banner of the Jewish Socialist Group. Yeah, we've been going on those marches since the war in Lebanon in 1982. But the Jewish community is changing. And the Israeli Jewish community is changing as well. And what's happening in both the British Jewish community and in Israel is that there's a polarisation. There's a polarisation. The bits that are growing are the bits to the further right and the bits to the further left. And so, if you go to a Palestine demonstration now, you'll see 7 or 8 Jewish banners of different Jewish organisations that have come to a position of absolutely supporting Palestinian rights. You'll also get on the other side the kind of far-right alliances being made by right-wing Zionists with the EDL, with Britain First, and trying to disrupt the meeting and all that. But there's definitely a significant shift. And I'd say that is also being reflected very much within Israel, where for all the repression which is mainly aimed at the Palestinians, there's a great deal, there's an increasing level of repression which is aimed against Israeli Jewish human rights organisations that are exposing the injustices against the Palestinians, and they're getting closed down. And the number of young Jews refusing army service and all this kind of stuff. We had a speaker recently in the Jewish Socialist Group who detailed about a whole number of these organisations. And I think one of the answers when people say that criticising Israel means this, or this, is also to say, well, actually, we support these people in Israel who are doing this, and this, you know, and amplifying the role of the oppositional movements, the dissenting movements, the real left movements that are there, because I think that's a way of undercutting some of this rubbish that is said when they want to say that any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism.
I don't know if it'll be a summing up, but if you like to try and pull some threads together, but I mean, again, just to say thanks very much for being here and for the support on Palestine. Those people who are raising things, it's about socialism, it's about 500,000 members, it's about other factors, if you like, which are some of the attacks. I agree with that, but I was asked on Radio 4 or something sometime, why doesn't the Palestine Solidarity campaign against the Yemen, Saudi Arabia, for socialism? And I said it's relatively simple, because we are what it says on the tin, we're the Palestine Solidarity campaign. Doesn't mean me as an individual or other people aren't into that, or shouldn't. But this issue about where do the attacks come from, I've just recently resumed, after 40 years, my student career, and trying to brush up on mathematics. And I was looking at, there's a thing called Venn diagrams where things come together. Well, I think that is the case with the attacks on Jeremy. If you like, there's after 2009, when Israel lost global public opinion, it commissioned their equivalent of IPPR, the Rayos Institute, to say, how do we challenge that? And they said, what you do is you delegitimise your opponents, BDS, and you use them by accusing them of anti-Semitism. And they set up their strategic department to do that, and they have funded and consistently done that ever since. And that has been one of their objects, and they identified the PSC, they identified London, and they identified the British trade union movement as key targets to delegitimise and brand as anti-Semitic. And that's what they've been seeking to do, and that's what they've been wanting to do with Jeremy. They leapt on the bandwagon. There were people in the Labour Party who didn't want Jeremy as leader. There were people outside the Labour Party who didn't want the growth of the Labour Party and a more socialist. They came together in one overlapping pressure group, but it does not deny the underlying fact that Israel wants to silence and use tactics to silence solidarity with Palestine, and it has been doing everything it can to try and do that. And the point I was trying to make is that we should not allow that to happen. And I've called out Israel as a racist and apartheid state. I've been quoted in the Sun as calling them an apartheid and a racist state, and happily do that. And I think it is the position of people in leadership to do that in roles that we should. But I think that would enable us, and the point of doing it is to enable the freedom of expression. If it's denied, we need to campaign against it. But just going back to my optimistic and student life, last week was Freshers' Week, and it's my second year, so I was running a stall, and I was setting up in Canterbury, Christchurch, a Palestine Student Society. Before I had the table undone, I had one Palestinian flag. There was a queue of people wanting to join the Palestinian Society. There is huge support potentially out there that is our job to mobilise and to win. Because if you go back, those of you, one or two of you might remember, if you like, the anti-apartheid campaign, people think Mandela walked free 6 months after the anti-apartheid campaign had been. It took decades for that to happen, and it became from small halls to Wembley Stadium. You know, we are on that journey, but we have a long way to go down that path. And the only way we're going to do it is by multiplying and having bigger meetings. And I think it's great that you're here. And I always say, it's great that you're here, but there's more for us to do. Let's go out and do it and make sure that we actually deliver real solidarity to Palestine that can make a difference to their lives. Because while we're talking about it, it's still the horrible reality that exists in Palestine that's getting worse. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you to our speakers for coming. We will aim to go to Wembley. You never know, we might get there. Just a couple of announcements. We've got somebody here from Croydon Trades Council. They're hosting a screening of a documentary film from Balfour to Banksy, Divisions and Visions in Palestine, Friday 5th of October at Ruskin House. Tickets can be booked through Eventbrite, and the Google link is Balfour to Banksy, or Ruskin House Events. David has asked me to flag up his journal, The Jewish Socialist. Where's he?
New issue, there's some over there. I'll let somebody in. Just hot off the press.
Hot off the press. And Liz from Brent, Palestine Solidarity. Two events. Tuesday, November the 6th is my birthday, don't forget. There's Hazel Road Community Centre in Kensal Green. Tom Snow, a local activist who recently cycled around Palestine, will be talking about his experience. And Tuesday, November the 20th at 7:30, Ben White, a journalist and analyst and activist, will recently published a book entitled Cracks in the Wall Beyond Apartheid in Palestine and Israel, and will speak about his book.
Mary,
Yeah.
there's one other relevant
Yes, please.
in relation to Trade Council. Next Thursday, the 4th, is the latest in line of strikes by McDonald's workers.
Yeah.
There's also this time strike at TGI Fridays and at Wetherspoon, where they're starting to unionise. As well, there's a central one in Leicester Square, but the Bakers Union is also asking people to lobby and protest at as many McDonald's as possible. So anybody interested in organising something at Kilburn McDonald's next Thursday, once people will be on the way out.
Joanne, how much did we raise?
I don't know.
Okay, everybody, £170 was raised for £17 for join PSC, support Palestine, take the message back to your organisations. Thank you for coming.